Hello guys and welcome to another video, and today we got on Panorama. So a detailed track out guide here with the Veyron. I found out that this car is kind of better for my driving style than the other cars. I think Megane and also I saw Scirocco's there. You can find the track guide down below in the description. So the track guide for this track, you can find it down there. I would like to explain it with a Veyron this time. It's a little bit different, but yeah, let's get going. And of course, if you want early access to these videos, you can become a supporter on my channel, and I do really appreciate this stuff. But here I'm looking, you can see the man down there taking a photo. So I'm usually looking at this guy and braking right here. But the interesting thing that I found out with this car is particularly trail braking. So when you're passing the 50-meter sign, you should already think about braking into the turn, but it has to be like a very little trail braking and then all of a sudden releasing the brakes. So basically you're going up and then you're trail braking and completely letting it go. This way you're not producing that understeer and you can actually get a much better exit onto this straight. So basically you're going from second, you're revving up the second, use a lot of this track, and then getting up into third gear. So when you pass the 50-meter sign, you turn into the corner, and this is where you slowly try to prepare the car for the turn by actually letting go of the brakes. It might be counterintuitive to do, but you have to let go of the brakes as well as you have to do it here. So I'm just lining up the car here on the left hand side. Don't enter the turn like this. So stay on the left hand side, 150, 100, and then you got this little gap. But this is already a little bit too late. So I'm braking right about there. I think this is the latest you can brake on the track. So brake in the straight line, very hard braking. And then 50-meter sign once again, you got the tree. And this is, sorry, I'm gonna go back a little bit just to show you. There is a tree by the guy who's taking a photo. When you pass that, it has to be, as I said before, a little bit of trail braking and now completely letting go of everything. And now almost in the middle, you go for the throttle. The point of all of this is not to produce too much understeer with the car, because this car is very heavy, but it also has a lot of torque. So it can actually pull you out of a lot of corners. You can do a bunch of stuff with it. So one more thing that I would like to note, you might see me like I'm upshifting when the car reaches about, I would say, 60% of the revs, because it has more torque like that and it's better. You will get a better acceleration out of the corners. Here, using a lot of track, don't turn in here. You can see, use a lot of track. Don't turn in too early. So you have to keep the car on the line. So the car is here, you're looking at the tree, you pass the tree, and this is where you start to turn in. Full throttle, we're gonna do it slowly. This is where the tree on the left hand side starts. But the most common thing is, or the most common mistake that I saw right here, is like going in too early. This will make you end up here. So the actual good line here is following the tree, as I said before. But if you're doing this mistake, for example, I think this is the most common mistake that I saw. Like people turning in too quickly and all of a sudden car is here and you cannot control it, you end up in the wall. So basically you have to do it as late as possible. I mean, at the same time, not too late, but not too quick. So I think the tree right there is a good mark for turning in. So when you pass it, this is where you start to turn in, and all of a sudden it just pushes you in this kind of good path. You got the tree, you got the shadow. This is where you brake. Try to straighten up the car. You can see I'm not really rotating the car that much. I'm kind of pointing out the car in this direction. So I actually want to be braking right about until this gap appears. So it's a very difficult turn. It's a very difficult line to get right, because you can go wide or you can probably not do as much braking as needed. It's very difficult, I have to say. But at the same time, you got to be on the limit. So you're actually looking at this patch, and this is where you reach this patch. This is where you start to turn in. So when the shadow ends, this is where you're going in, and all of a sudden, get in, go. And use the whole width of the track. So a very important thing about this turn is to get a good wide entry. So not to go in too narrow. I'm going to show you. Again, the most common mistake is people stay in the middle of the track. They think, okay, it's fine. The line is fine. And I should turn in, but no, you have to wait a little bit more, and then again it will push you into the wall. So as late as you possibly can, but at the same time not too late. I think the perfect mark for this turn is somewhere around here. So aim for this point. This is the point you should be aiming for, and this is where you start to turn in. And look at the line now. So the line is much better like this. And all of a sudden it all kind of connects together. So all of this section will connect if you do this this last section properly. And here I'm looking at the tree, but again, so don't go in too early, not exactly at the tree, because once again you will go into the barriers right there. So line up the car with this kind of Fujitsu billboards or whatever, and this is where you line up a car with that. You're looking at the tree, and all of a sudden you're starting to turn in. So this is the point where you start to turn in. You can even lift a little bit if you're not really familiar with the track, or if you're just struggling to do this turn. By the way, you can turn this car a lot. I mean, it turns like it's not so good with turning actually, but it's a very good car overall. I mean, high speed, yeah, definitely high speed sections are best for this car. Overtaking spots might be even the best car for overtaking. So I think even the best car for the race. We're looking at the marshals right there, and now we want to be staying in the middle of the track. Don't go in too early, because once again you will not get the good line. You will end up right about here, and at this point you cannot really turn in, so the car cannot handle the turn that well. At the same time, you don't want to be too late. So I believe staying in the middle of the track before this turn is kind of right. So after this one, you're staying in the middle. Again, you got the tree on the right. Here you're staying in the middle, and all of a sudden you're starting to turn in. And now all of this is bringing you to the right hand side, and now you can do this turn properly. Usually it's flat out. Usually you don't have to lift, and just it's flat out, but in 5th gear. And when you reach it up to here, you're in 6th to stabilize the car. Once again, to gain a little bit more time. I would like to talk about this corner in particular, because it's very difficult to get it right, and I think this car is perfect for it. So it's better than the other cars, because a lot of cars can bounce off this curb. But if you do it properly, it can get you a lot of time. So once again, I'm lining up the car. I'm using as much track as I possibly can. But if you go in like this, you will not be able to make the turn like I will explain. So you will probably end up a little bit in the middle of the track. Then you'll have to lift a bit of braking, and then all of a sudden you're losing like half a second. So the most common mistake, I would say. Here, you just want to use the whole width of the track. You can use the curb, so we can use the curb, but make sure that you're already doing a little bit of turning once you're on the curb. So don't go onto the curb and then turn in. So you have to be on the curb already turning. So here you should already be turning, so the car actually bounces off the curb and then gets you in the right direction. It's very hard to do it, but it's kind of rewarding at the same time. But here it's all about throttle management. I don't really have much to add here, except just avoid the grass. Just avoid the grass and do whatever you can that you need. Yeah, not really helping right there, but yeah, sometimes you cannot do much. Sometimes it's really those type of corners where you cannot really do much. We're gonna come into this part. Again, I'm gonna talk about most common mistakes. It's just about going this far, and when the Audi sign passes, you start to turn in, and kind of messes up with the balance of the car. So you actually have to be pointing out the car in direction you are headed in. So when you reach this point, when you reach the Audi sign right there, you actually have to be already pointed in the direction you want to be going into, like something like this. But if you do it like this, and all of a sudden you think, okay, I passed the Audi sign, like he said, and I'm going to turn in, the car is not going to be able to turn in that well. So you got to keep that in mind. You always should be pointing out in the direction you want to be headed. Like Audi sign, you're already pointing in there. Half of the braking. Why half? Because if you put the brakes down too hard, it might rotate the car too much. The stopping is not that great. You lose control, and then in the end, you spin. That's basically it. In the end, you will probably spin if you do not follow this technique. Like half of the braking going downhill, and once you straighten up the car right here, you press the brakes down hard. So only when the car is straightened up, you should be applying full braking. Otherwise, if you're doing something like this and put the brakes down, the car will slide. It will keep on sliding until the end. So you will probably end up in a wall. Straighten up the car, use a lot of curb, and this is where you're applying full braking. And all of a sudden release, once again, because you're turning, you have to release the brakes once again, heavy braking once again, and then all of a sudden a little bit of braking. So you don't want to reach this point with full braking. Why is that? Once again, because the car will rotate, you will lose traction, you will lose grip, and you will probably end up right about here. Again, this is causing you to lose about half a second. So just try to make sure the car is always lined up or always in the straight line when you're doing your braking. For example, something like this. So in the straight line right about here, brakes, turn again, a little bit of braking, letting the car go in the third gear, just a tap on the brakes, cut this part and go full throttle out. I know when I'm saying it, it kind of seems easy, but it is okay. I would say it is okay to do a lap like this. Easy, you can basically lift here and there just to make the car more stable, but in the end, I think it's kind of okay. We're looking at the super cheap auto sign. It's super cheap, actually. Yeah, we're looking at that, and then I'm starting to turn in. But you can see I'm actually trying to apply a little bit of throttle. And actually, you know the thing that I was talking about uphill? The same principles are valid here. So you don't want to be fully braking once the car is turning. So you want to be like 10, 15, 20 maybe % when the car is turning. And then all of a sudden, when you straighten up the car, right after dispatch, this is where you brake. Only here. If, for example, if you, as I said, the most common mistake, if you go in this part and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to apply the brakes like he said, it's not going to be safe. Here, if you're doing this and apply the brakes, you will probably end up right about here. Once again here, and then in the end you're just losing like a half a second, so that's already like a second and a half, only lost by not trail braking or applying too much braking. So there is a difficult part learning how to trail brake properly, but once you master it, I think it's going to be much better. So here, braking straight, you're looking at the shadow, you're looking at this kind of dip going in, so this is where the track kind of straightens up. I mean, it's not really straightened up, but kind of widens up, yeah. Sorry, missed the word right there. And then you're going from third into second, applying a little bit of braking, and then once again, you're letting go of the car because you want to release the car. You don't want to produce that much understeer. So the car, I mean, it's pretty heavy. That's all I gotta say. It's pretty heavy. It has a lot of understeer, and if you want to keep it control, especially in the turns, you have to let go of the brakes before the turn. Not too early, because then you'll probably end up in a grass or a wall, but you know, just at the point where it's needed, especially before the curbs. 150, line up the car like this, like usual, straighten up, and then you go 50 meter sign. This is where you start to turn in. I'm starting to turn in here, and as I said before, you should let go off the brakes, but at this point. So this is the point where you usually lift off the brakes and like actually let go of the car, do the turn. Like doing the turn, and all of a sudden you touch the curb, this is where you go. This is where you put the power down. You can even go wide a bit, because this car is heavy. I mean, it won't get out of balance or anything. And this is where you're actually getting time. You're cutting the track right there, but you're actually getting a little bit time back. But you only put like 2 tires on the track, so you don't have dirty tires for the next braking zone, which is right about 103. Once again, we're looking at a lot of trees. So the tree is the braking point, and this is where you usually brake. So I would say the most common mistake here is like to brake early or brake too late. The tree is the perfect sign. And then you go 50 meter sign, you got the first pole, you got the second pole, and when you reach the second pole on the right hand side, this is where you turn in. Another reference, another very good reference. So this is going to clear out all of the most common mistakes by like going in too early or going in too late. The pole is perfect, just follow the pole. So here we got, once again, you got the pole. This is where you're trying to brake a little bit, and then again letting go of the car, second gear, and now you're like really pushing the power down hard because you want to get that rotation of the car. Third gear, straighten up the car, there you go, and crossing the finish line in only 14 minutes 6 seconds. Yeah, it's not like that. Thank you guys once again. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this was helpful. If it was, you can even like it or you can become a supporter on the channel and have an early access to these type of videos. Thank you and see you again. Bye bye.